Hello, I'd like to do an interview with my next person. This is Gina, and say hello, Gina.
Hello.
Okay, and Gina, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell everyone where you're from and anything about yourself that you want to tell people.
Okay. My name is Gina. I'm from Quebec, Canada. And what else? Did I have to say?
I don't know. I mean, you can talk about are you neurodiverse? Are you neurotypical or what?
Oh, okay. Well, I have a diagnosis of ADHD,
Okay.
and I'm on my way to get the diagnosis of ASD, which is autism.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. And that's cool. I remember now we were talking about that. And whew, that's a interesting time, I bet, for you. To get this confirmed. And I know it was a big step for me.
Yes. Well, but what was difficult was you can do like a quiz on the internet.
Yes.
To see if to get an idea if you could possibly be autistic.
Uh-huh.
That helps you know. And I did the quiz, but I'm somebody that has difficulties with precision. For me, it's important that I do things precisely. And there's some questions that I found that weren't precise enough. So I actually went to the Autism Center for them to help me answer the questions so I could make sure that I answered them correctly.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Do you know who Carol Bird is?
No.
Okay, she's at one of the she and I were the co-founders of ASDV, and we have other plans that we were going to start doing too. But my mind just went blank. But what were you just saying? This is so embarrassing. This happens to me a lot. I'll go on a thought and it's like it just like disappears. Like, okay, what was the point of all this?
Yeah.
But
I know what you mean. The mind goes blank all of a sudden.
yeah, it does. But I mean, because what I'm trying to think of what else you were talking about.
Well, the test, the ASD test, and about precision, how precision is difficult, and
yes.
how
The quiz is what it was. And one of the things that we're going to try to do together, one of the things that she's definitely started on, and actually another member of the group, we're going to start working on making a quiz for people on the spectrum that is designed by people on the spectrum, so that because the questions you were saying, which you come up to a question, you go, well, do I do this? It's like, no, not really. I don't do that. Or maybe if it was a question about stimming, self-stimming, I would have said no. I had no idea. I guess part of it was I didn't know what it really was, and I didn't see myself doing it. But now I can see all the different ways that I self-stim. So I would answer that completely different. And if we can devise a quiz that asks those in a way that, just like you're saying, you're like, oh, I don't do that. Is that what was happening to you too?
Well, actually, it's like, well, I do that in this situation, but I don't do it as much in that situation. So what is my real answer? I felt like it wasn't precise enough.
Gotcha.
Like at work, when I'm at work, I like to work alone because if somebody comes around me, I'll lose focus and everything.
Yeah.
And like I won't mind going out like with my best friend to do something. That doesn't bother me. But then again, like when there's a group of people, I don't feel good. I'm like very stressed out.
Uh-huh. Yes, I understand that too. Yeah, I can remember. And it's interesting to me is that I was aware of those things, but since I didn't connect it with autism or something being neurologically different. I thought it was just my normal, was just sort of the normal thing. But the being uncomfortable in social situations and things, I don't understand still why it never dawned on me that there was an issue there. There was something going on there. That's not how everyone was feeling. So, but anyway, yeah, so you took the quiz, and that's what gave you an idea that there's more to what's going on than just.
Well, it all started off when my sons got tested for ADHD, and they both have it, and then I said, well, it's going to help me out at school, so I'll try, I'll see, just laughing it off. I didn't understand what ADHD was. For me, it was just being like hyper and silly and whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I took the test, and I was like, I realized how much it was. And then I started like hyper focusing on ADHD, and I was on this Facebook forums of ADHD, and I was talking about the situations I was going through, and how, like, when I tried certain medications, how I felt different, and how I saw that there was a difference. And then somebody told me, well, I think you might have Asperger's. And I was like, what's that? And then then I started researching on that, and I found it was like some sort of autism that's high functioning, the symptoms are a little less intense than people that are nonverbal. Anyways, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. And no, I know there's so many different types, or so many different ways that autism expresses itself in people, that when we try to look at that, though, when we try to think of ourselves as being autistic, when we're comparing ourselves with all the other different possibilities out there, it's very easy to go, well, that's not like me. Is that sort of what you were feeling too, or when you? Go ahead.
Well, certain things, it was like certain times I was like totally absorbed by autism and like what it is, and like some parts I was like, oh yeah, it's for sure, it's me. But then other times I was like, well, I don't know, but like sometimes, and it got me really, really confused. I had to really dig deeper to truly understand. And every time somebody would say something that was like one of my weird quirks on the autism forums, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone that does that. I mean,
yes.
and it keeps like making it more real for me. It's like, oh my gosh, maybe I really am. That means,
Yes, I do know.
It's quite a journey.
Yes, it is. And that's where I did what you did. I took the quiz, and that was like, that's interesting. But it wasn't the effect that actually meeting people and talking with people had on me, where I'm going, oh my gosh, these are things they are talking about and they've experienced, and things that I never even, I mean, it's like, it's hard to describe, because you don't sit around, when you think you're the only person like this in the world, literally, you don't sit around and think about it to yourself and go, oh yeah, isn't that interesting the way I do this or that? But you know that you do those things. And then you see someone else that does them, and you're going, oh my gosh, there's someone else like that. And it wasn't just one person, it was everybody. And I'm like, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
I know this is me. This is what's happening to me. And it's amazing too. How old are you too, Gina? I'm just curious.
I'm going to be 40 soon.
And 40, you said?
Yeah, well, I'm 39. I'm going to be 40.
Okay. So you've gone quite a long time too, like I did. And it's amazing how we kind of live with it and know that there's something going on, but we just don't once we finally see all of these kind of traits tied together underneath the umbrella of autism, it's a relief. It was for me a very profound and very positive, for the most part, very positive. I mean, there's rough parts too, as far as really coming to understand and accept some things. But for the most part, I'm like thrilled that I finally know what's going on in my life. How about you?
Well, it explains a lot. I remember when I was like grade 1, I didn't understand why nobody wanted to be my friend, and I asked the guy, well, why doesn't anybody want to be my friend? And he said, well, it's the way you talk and the way you act. And I didn't understand. I always felt like a reject, and I always felt like different, and
Yep.
I just didn't understand. I felt like so small compared to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now this is like the perfect explanation of why it was so hard, why I wasn't capable of having friends.
Yes.
And well, I had some friends, but I mean, I'd always spot the person that nobody wanted to be with, and I knew it'd be a lot easier to be with that person to be able to talk with, because I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm sitting here just thinking, when I talk with people, how common all this whole experience is with everyone as they grow up. And I mean, and we all seem to have these very vivid memories that we've stored away. It's like we haven't let go of any of that. Almost like, to me, it almost felt like I was waiting for a day when I would go back, understanding what was going on, and be able to make sense of it all. I mean, that's I don't know that's really what happened, but I've got, when I first discovered this, I would actually wake up out of dreams. I was obsessed by it. I was thinking about it constantly. And I started getting all these memories, and very, very vivid memories, and starting to connect all the dots from my earliest memories till now. And it's been a process now for 8 months or so for me that I'm still connecting dots. I've got larger understandings now of areas of myself. Before, it was all these scattered misunderstandings. And it's quite a process that we all go through after discovering that we're autistic. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's you have to relearn. You have to relearn about yourself all over again.
Yes, exactly. Well, I've called it like a rebirth or a metamorphosis. I mean, I don't think people that are neurotypical understand what it means when we say we're neurologically different. We're not, and I've said this in the other interviews, and I'll probably say this again, is that I'm really realizing that, let's say, if the world was all neurodiverse, it would be a very different world. The language would be different. Not that we'd speak a different, I mean, there would still be different languages, and there'd still be English and all this, but we would, just like we lose these languages differently than the neurotypical. We've got different intent when we communicate. We structure things differently, as far as the way we organize our lives, the way we organize information. All these very profound but subtle differences. And I think the world would be very different. That's what makes it so hard for us to function, I think. That's my theory. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. And it makes, for me, I find it more difficult because I'm English. My nature is English, and I'm in a place where everyone's French.
Oh, it's true.
So it's like another difference that I have to adapt to.
Have you had to learn French?
Yeah, I had to learn French, and when people found out that I had an accent when I was speaking French when I was younger, they were really mean to me, and they'd hit me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's...
Yeah, well, now it's better, but back then they wanted Quebec to separate from Canada, And
Yeah.
English people, they didn't like them very much.
I
So
remember that.
that didn't help.
So did you grow up in Quebec then?
Yeah, I grew up in Quebec, and yet I went to an English school,
Gotcha.
and I was raised with my mom and my grandmother.
Wow. Wow. So, and just out of this sort of on a tangent here, but how are you treated now? I mean, because you probably fit in well now, don't you? I mean, you probably speak pretty fluently as far as French and.
Yeah, well, French. Not many people notice that I'm English, so for that it's not too bad. But
yeah, yeah, you can hide.
But pardon?
I said you can hide. You can. I'm thinking about. I know sign language. I worked with the deaf culture a lot, and my sign language skills were to the point where people would say, "Oh, I didn't know you were hearing," and that was kind of that's a good compliment. You know, it's like, "Oh, yeah, I actually am." You know, and I'm just imagining probably it's the same for you as you can speak, and people, if they do find out that your native language is English, they're surprised, and that's sort of a good feeling.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything specifically you'd like to talk about? You were talking earlier. We said something about emotional highways. If you explain that a little more.
Yes. Well, I was talking to one of my friends, and my best friend since I was young, and she's very good in psychology. And she was talking about an emotional highway. When you live an emotion when you're young, and you live it over and over and over again, it becomes like a highway, and it becomes your go-to. When you're living something, you will have a tendency to go through that highway since you have created a large highway instead of the other emotions that that you have went on less and are a smaller road. It's a lot easier to go on the bigger highway. And I found out that mine was insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. Yeah. And I wonder how much of that is being autistic because, see, I suspect now that possibly my sister's autistic. I'm not sure. Possibly my dad and possibly his dad. But it's my dad was the kind of a person that growing up around him, he was very strict, very controlling, and I always felt very intimidated, or I always felt like I was going to be doing something wrong. I was very, very self-conscious, and I always thought that was a big influence of why I felt that way around other people. That's how I kind of thought we moved around quite a bit too. I mean, I think I moved around 5 times during, before junior high. So that basically every other year I was in a different school, you know. And so that I always thought, okay, well, that's one reason that I'm the new kid and nobody wants to talk and be friends with the new kid. So those are the kind of things that I was saying to myself. But I always had a very low self-esteem. We're talking about this emotional highway, and yeah, that was my go-to. Is there's something wrong with me? There's something. There's a reason for all these things happening. And of course, I never seemed to be able to explain that well with the excuses I was using, but I didn't have any other tools to use. So I just kind of said, okay, that's just me. But I like that concept of the emotional highway.
Yeah, it's smart, I find.
Yeah, yeah. But like I say, I wonder how common that is with people that are autistic, because this isolation, this alienation, this separation that we feel from society is profound, and it's very sad. I mean, the high suicide rate and things like that are part of our community. It just sort of reflects just how profound it is that this separation is, and it's a lot. I really feel for a lot of people I meet that have been there, because it was a very bad feeling to grow up that way.
And I don't know if you felt like that. Like me, when I was an adolescent and a young child, I took everything so personally. Every time I got bugged, it hit so hard inside.
Yes.
And I didn't realize, like, getting older, as an older adult, I realize now that people, they just bug each other to have fun. But back then, I didn't know that was a thing. I just thought that, oh my gosh, you know, I'm this defect, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the concept of teasing.
The concept of what? I'm sorry.
The concept of when people tease is sometimes
teasing.
It's just because they have nothing better to do, or they're just like silly or whatever, and
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that.
You know, I withdrew. Well, one, we lived out in the country from till about, I was in, I guess, junior high. So I was already kind of isolated as it was. So that, and then moving around, the whole concept of friends and people in my life was sort of foreign to me. And those were the kind of things for me that kept me from looking at it as either some organic problem within me that would be neurological, or I didn't know that. I knew I was struggling in school. I was struggling with reading. I was dyslexic, and I didn't know. And about the age of 11, I was given a formal diagnosis at the major university here in Columbus, the Ohio State University, and they had found, I think what they called it ADD then, and dyslexia. They had what they call a cross dominance, which I think was a center line problem for me, that I had problems with left and right, and I think I mixed them. And also there was a brain damage from hypoxia at birth. And I was given that diagnosis, and that's about all that really happened at that point. I don't remember any kind of special services. I never really understood what it meant. I didn't know it was something that it would be a part of my life for the rest of my life. I thought, okay, well, no one's talking about it. Maybe it's not a problem anymore, or something like that. But did you have any other kind of a diagnosis? You said ADHD was a diagnosis for you?
Yeah, ADHD was a diagnosis that I got a year or two ago.
Okay.
But I had some when I was a teenager. I started at 10 years old. I started blacking out. I mean, like, it was like as if you pass out, but you're still sitting up. It's strange. It's like you're all of a sudden, all you know is all of a sudden you come back from nowhere.
Huh.
And I think it was a coping mechanism, because I found life was hard and boring. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And then they started doing tests on me. They put needles through my head. Well, not through my head, but through the skin of my scalp.
Uh-huh.
With wires to test. They didn't find anything. They kept on trying to find stuff, but they never could find anything. And then after that, at the age of 16, they thought I was in a depression. They tried that, and that didn't work out. Then they tried, and anyways, I don't want to talk. They tried many things to find out many things that maybe I could be. But at the end, they finally said, well, she just has a personality, not a personality problem, but a comportement. How do I say that? An acting out problem.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So they finished it like that, but there was still something. But they just didn't want. They gave me so many medications that they I think what they wanted to do was to stop that because it wasn't doing me any good. It was just like making you very tired, and it wasn't good.
Yeah, they had started me on Ritalin, I think, and I didn't stay on it very long because it should have been sort of a clue. I don't know what they knew then. I know there's 3 different types of AD, attention deficit. There's hyperactive, there's inattentive, and there's impulsive.
Yes.
And I don't know if they knew that then, but they had tried me on Ritalin, and I don't remember how long I was on, but I can remember just that surge of, I guess, adrenaline or whatever hit you from that. And so I was like literally bouncing around while I was going to school in the bus, and I'd get there and the first class I'd kind of settle down, and then I kind of remember it kind of going normal after that, but apparently it wasn't. And the big thing that I wish professionals and parents would talk with their children more about what's going on, because you might not, there's exceptions to that. I know that my parents were told after my diagnosis came back that I'd never graduate from high school. And which I was sort of shocked at, because I'm glad I know that now, because I would have said, no, I wasn't that bad. Well, that's pretty bad if they're telling you, your parents, you're not going to graduate from high school. But there was...
That's very encouraging.
It's what?
That's not encouraging to help you want to try.
Well, I know. Well, I'm kind of glad they didn't tell me that I didn't know that specifically. But I wish it wasn't dropped like it was. I don't feel like there was any services that maybe as I got older that they should follow up and say, okay, well, you've done pretty good compensating, but just to let you know that when it comes to employment, when it comes to relationships, just to give you some sort of something to help you understand yourself better, because that was something for me. Now that I look back, I think my life would be very different if I had known. I would probably be in a relationship, if not married. I may have a family. These are things that I feel didn't happen because I always felt like there's something influencing this. Something's not right. Something, and it was the autism.
Yeah.
Wow. It's pretty amazing. I enjoy talking with you and I enjoy talking with others that I can relate to, because it's, I still have that feeling like you're, I really do. I think of you as a sister, as a autistic sister, somebody who really does relate and really can understand. And that's very few people. I think still I could probably, I guess if I count everybody I've met since in the last 8 months, it'd be more than I could count on my hands. But I told you about, the people that helped start up the ASD village. Those are the people that I feel a bond with, that are family practically. And you join in. It's like, okay, you are an exception to this model of what society and what socializing is. And you are now a person that really understands. So I'm changing my whole concept of socializing and what society can be. I'm so excited. I still am. How do you feel?
I don't know what to say, but I can say one thing.
Uh-huh.
I wish people would understand that when we say that we are doing our best, and when we describe how difficult the situation is, to not take it lightly or think that we feel our pain the same level as them or in the same situation. I find that I can tell my mom I have difficulty with pressure, and at the beginning, and she said, well, all jobs have pressure, but I don't believe she understood the intensity of what I was going through. Now she understands better.
Uh-huh.
But at the beginning, it was like, it's like as if some people don't understand how hard it can be, how your world can be turned upside down in situations that for other people, it's yes, it's hard, but not that hard, you know?
Right. Well, it goes back down to and when I don't think that, okay, I'm trying to think how to word this. I think that being autistic and trying to have lived in a world as not being autistic, we learned a lot about that world, or at least we learned in a sort of a strange way what we're not by trying to live in that world. We didn't know what we were, but we kind of knew what we were not, and that's sort of a weird way to go about life. But and I think when people that are neurotypical try to think of autism, it is naturally it's from their neurotypical perspective. They think, well, how could a sound, how could a touch, how could a temperature, how could changing routines, how could that really disrupt you? And I give an example at work. I know when I sit down, I work in maintenance in an apartment, so sometimes stuff gets thrown at me that something broke that night, or somebody has something they want fixed that morning, and my mind is already set on doing a totally half a day or a full day of a different task. And they say, okay, well, you need to do this now. And it's like, I need to go back to the office. I need to sit there for a while and kind of go, okay. And sometimes I need to detach completely. I'll literally play a video game on my iPod, and it's just sort of like, okay. And it just sort of neutralizes everything, and I can come back to the situation and I can think, okay, now what is it I have to do? I have to do this. So I'll think it through, which I think is a common trait. It's like you kind of do it first in your head before you go to do it. And they don't understand. It's like, well, why do you need to do that? You're just being lazy. You just want to play video games. It's like, no, I'm trying to detach. I'm trying to change gears. Is that kind of, does that sound right to you? Is that sort of what you kind of go through too, in a sense?
Well, I can explain you like the times when it was difficult.
Okay.
Once. There was this man. He needed this machine, and for me to get his machine ready, I just had to put water in it and take the little cover off, put water in it, and put the little cover back on.
Uh-huh.
But I turn on the water, and it's on too high. But I couldn't. I knew I had to put it down, but I couldn't. I was like frozen, and I couldn't. So I said, okay, next step. I can't do that, so I'll have to go to the next step. So I put the water in, and it's splashing all over the place. And then it's time to put the cover on. But I totally forgot where the cover was, and I was looking for it, and I was in like a total panic, and I was looking all over, and I couldn't get out of the panic. I just, my mind couldn't think, couldn't process anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Even another person, I had to explain a machine, and I knew how to do it. I just had to take the time, but she was like moving fast around me, and it was making me. I was kind of dizzy, and I was like thinking in my head. I was imagining myself explaining him how to do it, but then everything was going like too fast, and I was just frozen. I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak. I just gave him his paper, and he left, and that was it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I just couldn't handle it. It was too much, you know.
Yeah. You know, as you talk about these things, I'm noticing something, and I think it's related to being older. I think that the tremendous amount of energy it takes to do all these processes, I think as we are getting older, is becoming harder, because I don't think my mind is as sharp. I don't think my stamina is as strong, as enduring, and things like that are changing for me. And I'm almost, gosh, this is almost embarrassing for me to talk about, but I will, like when I'm trying to get stuff ready here to do this interview, I will put some part or some piece of something that I need on the desk, and I'll forget where I put it, and I'll think, okay, well, where is it? And I'll start getting very upset. I mean, it's like, oh, come on, where is it? And it can literally, sometimes it's literally sitting in front of me and I can't see it because I'm focusing on something else, or I'm thinking of a different color, or I'm thinking, and so and of course, this goes back to, I'm still in that, and partially in that frame of mind where I'm trying to compare myself with a neurotypical person. So I'm saying, okay, well, there's something wrong with you. Instead of me saying, when you have a certain amount of stress, your brain cannot process things like it was without the stress. And so that you need to, instead of getting more upset, you need to maybe walk away, or you need to sort of say, okay, and just drop it for a few seconds. Trying to find different ways of coping with it instead of trying to cope with it the way you think you're supposed to. Does that make sense? You can say no. Or you can say, I don't know what you just said. Seriously, sometimes I just go off on tangents.
The loose stress of what the person saying sometimes. So I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. This is actually a probably what a person that's neurotypical, even neurodiverse, would probably see watching our interview, is to see, they go, I do that. I've had a person just this morning comment on YouTube something about seeing something about the interaction. It surprises me. They're like, oh, they'll pick out one thing and go, oh, I do that too. And it's like, I didn't even realize I was doing that. And they'll say, yeah, I do that, So this is that opportunity to learn. And I think that when we go off on tangents, or we completely go blank on a subject, or that it shows people how our minds either work or don't work sometimes.
That's true.
Yeah.
It gives them a visual.
Yes, yeah.
Or an auditive.
Let me think. There were questions that were coming to. I've got a pencil and I've got paper in front of me, and I should write these things down instead of trying to remember them, because they won't stay up here in my head. But there's.
I do the same.
It's what?
I do the same. I got to write things down, or else I forget. And sometimes when I write it down, I forget where I put what I wrote down.
Me too. I have to be very specific. Oh, there's so many. And this is a good example of when people that might be neurotypical wonder, when we talk about how much effort it is to process things, the fact that because I think it changes. It's not like we can say. And I think this is also why we like our routines, because if we can get in a groove, if we can do things the same way, then there's less chance that we're going to forget things that that we'll remember.
Yeah, it's easier to process.
Exactly. And that's why changes in routines are so difficult, because it's like, what? It's like starting over.
Uh-huh.
Wow. It's isn't it in a strange way comforting to know that's our normal, that we can be at peace with saying, okay, that's me, I do that, yep, and you do that too, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I would say that it's a very healthy thing for us to do, because look at babies, right? Babies, they have their time schedule. It's time to eat. It's time to sleep, and that's the way babies work. I mean, why should we change a good thing?
Yeah, no kidding. And And I'm laughing, but that is a really good example of what I'm saying. How the world would be how differently the world would be structured if it was an all neurodiverse world instead of a neurotypical world. Because who knows, work may be something where the farthest thing, the worst system you could devise is, okay, you're going to leave home and for 8-9 hours you're going to go to a place, and you are expected to do whatever comes up for 8 hours, and no breaks, no time to step back and go, okay, what's the best way to do this? And, and that's what we get when we're in the neurotypical world. People saying you're lazy, you're this, you're that, you're this. And it's all in...
Don't try hard enough.
Yeah. And it's all in perspective to the way they work their world. If they were in our world, what would we be saying about them? You know?
Yeah, well, I think it's because they try to relate to us, but they don't have any examples that they have lived
right.
to be able to relate properly.
Right. Absolutely. That is so key. That is such an important statement because, and that's what I'm hoping of recording our conversation. I mean, it's comforting to me, but this has got to be something amazing for somebody who's neurotypical to listen to. I mean, it's like, come on, you guys, can't you just try harder? I mean, can't you just, and this is when I've been responding a lot to people. There's a website called Quora, I think it is, Quora, I think it's pronounced Quora. And it's people that will ask questions, and then people in the will answer it. And a lot of them have been about autism. And I try to take my time and give a good answer from my perspective. Because I feel this is all information. It's usually a neurotypical person that's asking these questions. And you can tell because it's like, why do all autistic people do this? It's like, no, not autistic. Not, I don't. Nobody I've met does that. I know people do that, but you know what I mean? It's just helping to educate them. And there's so much of that. And this is what's
about autism.
Yeah. Well, this is why I think it's so important that we do recordings like this and get it out there. And something neurotypical, it'll be curious to see you in the next year. It'll be interesting to see what the response is to these recordings. I think it's going to be very positive because this is real. This is you and me talking about what we do and who we are. And this is not what the neurotypical population sees and gets to see. So, but
yeah.
anything that comes to your mind, please add.
Well, I've got something in my mind, but my mind is so sporadic. I don't know if that's the right word. It
sure.
jumps from one to another.
Well, you can at any time jump in and say, hey, that'll fit normally. That would be just perfect.
Well, I describe something weird that I went through when I was a teenager.
Uh-huh.
I remember I used to love the New Kids on the Block. Oh my! I had posters of them all over the place. That's a music group.
Uh-huh.
And I loved Joe McIntyre. He was the cutest thing, I thought. Oh my. But in my mind, I thought that since I thought he was cute, I wanted to look like him because I wanted to be cute.
Uh-huh.
Now I understand that that's not how it works, but in my mind, it was like super logical, and it took a while, like some girls to help me out. Okay, no, you can't walk like a rapper. No, you don't do that. And they teach me how to walk. They teach me how to dress. Oh my gosh! But still, there's some clothes. I try to comfortable but feminine. I try to blend the both in because I remember my mom when she used to dress me up when I was young. I felt like I was suffocating, So, yeah. Okay, I'm done.
No,
Your
so
turn.
you mean so you have a very your sensory the tactual sensation you get when clothes are on you is a how do I put it is affects you profoundly. Is that a fair statement?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I feel trapped.
Yes. Carol Bird, who I was telling you about, is like that too. She lives up in the Saskatchewan, and during the winters, she throws something on just to get out between the inside door and her car, and she has a vehicle that she can remotely heat, and start up and heat. So, and then she immediately she usually wears a tank top and I said, is that just uncomfortable for touch you? And she said, no, I feel like I'm being suffocated. It almost sets off a panic response to have. I kind of relate to it as being almost like a claustrophobia. It's you feel, and so but anyway, so this is another thing I don't think people understand is that a neurotypical will go, well, come on, at least put a coat on until you get out. No. It's you might as well put me in a coffin and bury me 6 feet under the ground for 10 minutes if you're going to put a coat on me. Is that? I mean, that's a sort of an extreme way to put it, but people just think you're being whatever. It's like, no, you don't understand. Now,
And another thing is weird though is when sometimes like when I was a teenager, and sometimes even now, I'll admit. I'll go into an area that is small and close in like a wardrobe or something like that to feel secure. And it seems like it's the opposite, but it's not. It's really strange. And I remember my mom once got upset at me, and she didn't understand what the heck I was doing, hiding in a little corner. under a wood thing, anyways. But it was me trying to find security because I was like super insecure, and I needed to close into my world because all the rest was too much,
Yes. Have you ever used like I forget what they call it, like a weighted blanket?
I'd love to have one of those, but I do put tons of blankets on me.
But they say that the weight and the compression is very, very, very comforting, calming. That might be something that I know they're expensive is the problem. They're like $150, $200 for one that has some significant weight to it. We're only talking like maybe 10 pounds, I think. But that's heavy for a blanket, of course. But it will give you that compression, and maybe that's something that would be very calming for you.
I'd like to try that. Well, I put a lot of blankets, and my first blanket is a really soft, fluffy one, and I've got my little teddy bear. So.
Yeah, that's all important.
And I take melatonin to help me sleep too.
How would you talk more about, if you want? I mean, this might be, sensory rise as far as smells, and how does this affect you in your daily life? What do you have to do to compensate for it?
Well, smell, I don't think, I think I might be hypo, or just because my mom is hyper. Because my mom smells everything. It's crazy, and I don't as much. So I smell compared to a normal person, how I smell, but I don't think I smell enough. But then again, I got my nose broke when I was in my early 20s, so I don't know if that changed anything.
Right.
Lights, when it comes to light, I know the library, the lights are really, really bright.
Yeah.
And on the second floor, and I can't stand that. I don't feel good. I get anxious, and I feel dizzy a bit. I know I went once to a bathroom where they had those fluorescent lights, and they were flickering a lot.
Yeah.
My son went in the bathroom, and then I had to go, and I couldn't. I felt like I was going to throw up. It
Wow.
made me so sick to the heart. I tried, maybe if I closed my eyes, maybe I'll be okay, but I couldn't. I had to wait to find another bathroom.
Yep. Yep. That's a good.
But I know even at school, like the noise, I'd always hide. I'd try to find a place that was quiet to be able to calm down and like recuperate, like from all the energy everything was taking out from me.
Have you had meltdowns or shutdowns from the oversensory stimulation?
Well, I know once when a motorcycle it allowed noise.
Yes.
After that I was all lost and I wasn't able to focus and I was all confused and disoriented.
But you haven't had what would be the classic meltdown to where basically you've tried everything you can do to cope and calm down and find a way to get rid of or to turn off all the stimulation, whether it's physically or mentally to do that, and you don't do it, and it just builds up to the point where you basically you find, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. And this doesn't happen to me. I'm going by what other people have described, but it doesn't sound like you've had a classic meltdown. And I'm wondering how much we can actually suppress of what our natural tendencies are, because I'm going off I could feel myself going off in a real tangent. Also, I'm going to stop there and see if you have any comments on that.
Well, I don't think it was. Well, me, it's been more like with all the things I've been going through emotionally, but that have made me like have I know I've hit myself once or a couple of times before because like the emotions were too much. But I don't think it was like sensory related. Like lights and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Go.
Well, that's I was gonna say that's more. Although I do have a sensitivity to light and sound and touch, and it's more of like a startling reflex. I mean, I can remember in school that fluorescent lights and hearing the buzzing, and it was disorienting. And but I could tune it out. I mean, I could just still focus on what I needed to do. So I think in that sense I'm on the mild side, or at least I'm able to control it. So, but I think emotionally, I remember being more of a wreck when I was a kid. But it's changed as I've gotten older. Have you found it to be a little easier, or at least you have different strategies of coping with it better as you've gotten older?
Well, what happens is I just started entering the workforce this year. I was in school before, so actually, well, what happens is it's not that it's not. I don't. Well, I have. It matters more. If I could put it that way, because before, if I had a meltdown, if I wouldn't feel good, if I was acting strangely, it wouldn't matter because I was at home and I was doing my thing. But now that I'm out there and I have to go to work and everything, well, that's where, that's where the challenge is.
Yeah, gotcha. But what I was sort of getting at is that has it? Okay, I don't know if you can if this can be answered, but if you didn't have to do some of the things outside of home, if you could be more in a comfort zone, do you think that you're coping better in your comfort zone than you were when you were younger? I mean, have you, has it gotten easier in the sense that you've gotten older?
Well, I think I've learned to be less impulsive, which helps me.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's what helps me the most, because when you're impulsive, you tend to bring yourself to situations that are not necessarily good for you, and you create more stress for yourself.
Yeah. So is your that's the type of ADD that you have then, as an impulsive, would you say?
Well, I have inattentive for sure, impulsive and hyper.
Okay.
I tend to be hyper too. I can get hyper, yeah. When I was young, I was worse there. I was very, very, very hyper, and I remember my my fifth grade teacher. I hugged him. I hugged his leg, and I was calling him Georgie Daddy. And then I was running around the class calling everybody names. Well, one guy I think name anyways. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's funny. I can think back into school. This is part of how the diagnosis has changed me, and that is, it's for the first time I think I can be sort of honest with myself, and look back and see why things were happening, and boy, I shake my head because why there was the uncomfortable situations there were, and how I was really interacting with the other kids and the teacher. I remember one time, I remember this really clearly, we were doing something on the wall. We were like tracing something, and they had the old overhead projector, and it'd be projected, and the teacher said, "Tom, you're in the way of the light." And so I got out of the way, and she got up and she was in the way. I said, "Well, now you're in the way of the light." And she looked at me and I said, "Well, I'm the teacher." And I just kind of remember her reaction was so strong then that I was like, I must have said something that was, not quite right here. But other than that, I was pretty much oblivious. I really was. I just was like, oh, okay, yeah, and how much of that was a self-protection thing where I just like, okay, I'm not going to think about this. I'm just going to let this go. And that's kind of what my life became, was sort of I don't know, I didn't question. I didn't, I kind of became, I'm trying to think of the words I want to use. I just let things slide. I just kind of went with the flow. I was just like, okay, whatever. Passive is what I was thinking of. Very passive.
Yeah.
Boy, there are so many ways that we're affected.
I wish I would have known why we were going to school. I didn't even understand what school was for.
Yeah.
I nowadays I was like, how come I didn't understand? Everybody else understood, but I didn't understand why we're going to school. And to think further, like, oh, I want to be this when I'm older, or something like that. But I guess you're so busy reacting to life that you don't have a chance to think about that.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I'm sitting here as you're thinking about this, but you're so right. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know I was there. I felt, and I can go back earlier, and that was the way I felt about life, really. I felt that way about, everything was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what this is for. And school is one example of that. I mean, eventually you kind of know that your family is the place that you eat and you sleep and you eat, somebody sort of helps you out. And I don't want to make it sound like it was, I loved my mom and my dad as much as I knew how to, I guess, or my dad was kind of a different story. I think I brought that up earlier. He was kind of a distant person and wasn't really engaged with us, but that was still normal. That was still family. And what's interesting about this point too, about not knowing what school was about, I remember when I was I think it was junior high, that my mom and dad sort of sat me down and like, okay, you need to sort of decide what it is you want to do with your life. I mean, it's like, what? What are you talking about? You got to decide what you're going to do. And that was like, I didn't think about those things. I wasn't ready for that question. Of course, in the next 2 days, I came up with an answer. Okay, what's my dad do? Well, I don't want to do that. What's his brother do? Oh, he flies airplanes for the airlines. I don't think I'll do that. And that's about what my career decision was based on.
Yeah, I remember like not being serious about it, but I remember like seeing everything that I saw on TV. Oh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that. Oh, I'll do that. Oh, I'll do that.
No, I'm saying it again. That's what other people were saying to you is, why do you do that? Or you were asking yourself that?
No, but I was watching TV, and I'd see something on TV, and I'll do that. And I'll do that. I'll do that. You know?
Yeah.
But nothing. Just.
Anyways. I didn't. This is one of those kind of questions that were on the Ask Me quiz that now that I think about differently, and it was something about, do you watch programs and do you copy what they do and things like that? And I thought, nah, at the time. But then I started realizing that one of the unusual things, or one of the typical things that I do for an autistic person, is I would like watch a video or listen to an audio tape or something over and over and over and over and over and over and over until basically it was memorized. I could play it in my head. I could see it in my head. And I don't think I was realizing how much behavior I was picking up off of characters and stuff and incorporating into my life. So that's sort of what you were saying you were doing, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
And even lately in school, I listen over and over to a tape of a comedian. So I and then after that I try to be funny, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I know. And as you talk about this, one of the things I'm thinking about too is that I really do think that when you're autistic, there is a baseline. There's something common that we all share. It's just changes in degree. I think everybody has sensory issues. Everybody has perseverations. Everybody repeats. Everybody does routines. But it's in different degrees. And that's fascinating to me because. But it still emphasizes this point that I really strongly feel that neurotypicals need to understand, neurodiverse need to understand about their own selves, is how different our system is and how we need to understand that system to know ourselves and to be free to be able to be the best person that we can be, whatever our capabilities are. And I think this would be so freeing to our community. But it would also help us to function in the predominantly neurotypical world, because hopefully then people would say, okay, Joe is, Tom is autistic, or Tom is whatever we're going to call him. So yeah, it's okay that he goes for 5 minutes now that I've changed his routine, and he does whatever he needs to do, whether it's, sounds funny, but it may be go to the bathroom. I mean, it may be to sit there and completely change my routine. It may be to eat something. It may be to play on the computer. It may be, but it helps me to somehow disengage and then re-engage on my terms and plug all my little plugs into the right place so that I can change that routine and do what I need to do. I went off on a real tangent there. I'm sorry.
I didn't even notice. I thought everything was okay.
But did it make any sense? I guess that's what I'm really asking. Did I just waste 5 minutes? Oh, it's such a relief to talk with you because I feel normal. I can still see my abnormalities, I guess, in a sense, but I still feel normal. I've got a. You'll see this on the video. You're going to see something that I bought when you used to watch this video. But these were masks. It's Halloween here, and I got these. I got a mask. It's a plastic mask. They looks like pretty much a human face, but it's I got a black one and a white one. But masking is something that has taken on a significant meaning to me in the last probably it's been since I found I was neurodiverse, but it's starting to mean more to me because I realize how much I mask, how much I didn't know about myself. How do you, I mean, what's...
Oh my gosh, I just thought of that today. I was talking to my friend about all this stuff, and I was like, well, like when I was young at school, the guy, he said, well, you don't make friends because you act and talk like that. Then after that, I remember like at 10 years old, I would like switch from one subject to another fast, and my mom got upset, and then I felt like I wasn't right. I was wrong the way I was. I was just trying to be myself. You know?
Right.
And then after that, as a teenager, I would tell my mom like what I'd done, and she'd like freak out. She'd like, well, she has a tendency to freak out, but she's a person that worries a lot.
Uh-huh.
And so then I said, well, I'm not talking to her anymore. So I have just like continually like, oh, now it's like, what can I say? When can I say it? How do I say it?
Yes.
Is it okay? Not okay. And I have to I'm constantly calculating what I have to say and when I have to say it for it to be okay. And it's frustrating. It's hurtful.
Yes, it is. That's oh gosh, we could talk an hour about what you just said. I swear. When we say hurtful too, I think neurotypical people understand. We're saying hurtful because it's almost like a pain. It's not a physical sharp something you feel in your skin or whatever, but it is something you feel emotionally to where it is at a level of uncomfort that is that gives you a same response that you would have to pain. It's like your body saying, you can't do this, stop doing this. That's what pain is telling your body, your mind. Your body's telling your mind, okay, you just put your hand on a hot stove, you need to move it. Only it's a little quicker than that. But that's the kind of things when we're talking about these emotional pains and these situational pains to where you're in an interaction with somebody and you feel it hits you so hard that you can't think, you can't recall words, you can't, you lose control.
You stutter. You stutter. I say something to somebody, and I'm okay. I have this amount of time to say it. I have this much to say, which is a lot. And so I try to make it short so I don't bother the person because their time frame is not the same as mine. So I only say bits and parts of what I want to say, and it ends up that I missed out information, and oh my gosh, it ends up all wrong, all messed up.
Yeah, yep.
I don't that to you.
Well, these are some of the early clues I could see in myself that were still current when I first discovered my autism, and that is, I remember this very clearly because I noticed it a few times. Like in the morning, I work in this apartment, so a lot of the people there, it's older people too. So of course they're going to say good morning, and I would sort of see them coming and I'd sort of anticipate them saying this. And so I would kind of say, okay, I'll respond as good morning. And of course, this isn't like something I'm consciously going through. I mean, I've done it so many times. It's like, okay, and it's done. You've thought it through. And then it's like, they'll say good morning. And I'll say, it's like the words aren't there. It's like, oh, good. And I'll maybe say good evening. I may say something that's gibberish. And I'll say, it's like nothing came out. And so you're embarrassed. And it's like, okay, do I correct it and look twice the fool? Or do I just look a fool once? Or, and these are the common, daily, constant struggles.
Yes.
And
it goes on so often, and people, they don't realize it as much as we do.
Yes.
We're like in it.
Yes, exactly. Well, wow, this is just so important. I'm just going to let you know we're about an hour and 2 minutes in. And the only concern I've got is that the battery on my camera is about on the last bar, which means it's probably got about 5-10 minutes left. I'm just guessing. I'm not sure. It's a new battery, so it's lasting. Actually, some of my older batteries wouldn't have gone this long, I don't think. But so if I'm going to kind of watch that, and if I say, oh, we lost it, you'll know what I'm talking about, okay?
Okay.
Are you tired? Do you want to take a break, or are you still good?
I'm good.
Okay. I just think that we're hitting, as we talk longer, we're getting in on some extremely fascinating topics that I think are so important for, again, I'm learning from you because I'm going, yeah, I do that. But I'm thinking somebody neurotypical that's listening to this is going, oh my gosh, you're kidding. Because it's coming out very well. It's coming out very genuine. And I just think these are classic, valuable bits of information that somebody that is not autistic is going to go, wow.
It's really that hard. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that if you and I were to spend a day together, at the end of the day, I'd probably be going, yeah, you're struggling more than I am. On some things, at least. And you may say, well, you're struggling more than I do on these certain things.
Yeah.
But this is again another fascinating point, is how different autistic people are. That we can be about the same age, we can be close to the same expressions that autism is having in our lives, but how different still that we are.
Yeah. Well, everybody is unique.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And where two neurotypical people are unique, and they can go, yeah, I don't do that. Well, I do, and blah, blah, blah. I don't. This is what's curious to me is, I wish I could put in a neurotypical brain for a day and really see what they experience, because the more I realize what it is to be autistic, the more I realize how different I really am than what I thought I was of being neurotypical. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I'd be curious to see how their brain works, how they find it, their difficulties and their. I mean, they find things difficult, but how do they live it? I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Well, I was telling you, Joy. I'm going to pronounce her name wrong because I pronounced it one way in my head. She pronounced it differently. Azaid. Oh, sorry. Oh, you're going to kill me, Joy. Azaid, I think it was. But she was telling me her neurotypical perspective of neurotypical people. And I think I said something about this earlier too, was that she was saying, oh yeah, they are very deceiving sometimes. They're not direct in what they're trying to say. They're misleading. They're not very nice. They're not very honest. I'm like, wait a second. You can't talk about those people that way. It's like, well, yeah, I guess she can. I don't think I should. And I don't know if I don't really have that opinion because I don't know what they think really and what they feel really.
I got a feeling that it depends who, because there's also an issue of values too.
Yes. Ooh.
Depending on the person's values, that changes a lot.
Yes. You mean between neurotypical and the neurodiverse?
Yes, it's true. Like neurotypicals, if they have different values, it's going to be different. I imagine neurodiverse too. I imagine it must change things. I mean, if you've got good values, you want to be nice.
Right. This is a great topic because that's the assumption I always made, was everybody else had the same values and same perspective I did. And that's why it was so confusing, because you'd approach them with a topic and they were like, look at you like you were green, And it's like, what did I just do? what was different here? And then things that you really saw that you knew there was a difference in opinion or the way that they approached it, but you were hitting them with a better way of doing something, whether it's, oh, I don't, a technique. Maybe you're cooking something and you do it this way. And they're like, no, I've done it this way all my life. It's like, well, yeah, but there's a better way. And of course, then they're insulted, But in our minds, we're like, well, we're trying to always process things and do things efficiently because there's so much going on and we need to keep it organized. And so we do things efficiently. So we approach things that way, whether it's our language, whether it's our the tasks that we do. And when you've got a different set of values, and sometimes it gets into morals too. It's like, I wouldn't, and I'm not saying that autistic people are completely moral, perfect angels. I'm not, but it's just a whole different perspective that we come from. What often?
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's just a very. This is very eye-opening to talk with you about this. The things that kind of fly through my thoughts that you've thought of too, or that you've seen, or even whether it's about myself or about somebody neurotypical or whatever.
Yes. Well, I found that a lot of ways that I'll say certain because I don't want to put everybody in the same bubble. Certain neurotypicals I have found very superficial, but to them it's important. It's important to them. Yeah.
I know what you're saying, and that's of that difference in values. That's what I was talking about. That difference in how the world would be structured if it was neurodiverse, because it's and this is the best I can kind of piece together, and that is like the whole thing with small talk, with being able to that what you feel is more important than the substance of what's actually happening. So that if you I got to watch the way I phrase things because it could probably be very insulting, but I mean, you can stab someone in the back, but if you do it in a nice way, you're okay.
Oh my.
That's a terrible way to say it. But, there's some truth to that. It's like, it doesn't matter how you kill someone as long as you do it pleasantly.
Maybe you should use another
example. I'm being extreme and I'm being a little silly here when I say that, but very silly, I guess. But it does sort of emphasize or illustrate differences in the way that we approach things.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've lost me.
Oh, I lost you. Well, no, I'm just saying in the sense that there's such a difference in the way that neurotypical and neurodiverse people approach things sometimes that, I guess I'm lost it myself. Hey, what's your favorite candy? No, I don't know. And I started on a completely different topic here. Oh,
Let's see. Well, I'll tell you a story then.
Sure.
If you want. I found a story that helped me a lot.
Oh, wait a second. My battery's about to die on my camera. We'll end it here and you know what? This might be an important story. Let me change the batteries. We'll just take a second and I'll start over from there, okay?
We can leave it there because not everybody likes to listen to something for a super long time, so okay. It will be...
Okay.
It could be nice to their patients.
You're right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll say sayonara then to the audience, and I will cut this off and cut the camera off. And thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully you got a lot out of this. And let me get to that point where I can do that. And let me shut that off.